Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the County Board public hearing on the FY 2025 to 2034 Capital Improvement Program. And as you probably know, I'm Libby Garvey, and I'm the chair of the board this year. I am joined by my colleagues, Vice Chair Takis Karantonis, members Matt DiFranti, Maureen Coffey, and Susan Cunningham. So tonight, we're here to hear public testimony on the CIP. The board will act on this at our upcoming July County Board meeting. Tonight is just a time for us to hear from you in this format. I think we've already talked probably with a number of you and gotten emails, and that's great, and it's nice to have you here with us this evening. Before we get started, though, I'm going to turn it over to our manager, and we'll have just a brief presentation. Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karen Talley is going to walk through several slides to remind everybody where we are in the process. So over to you, Ms. Talley.
Thank you. Good evening. So the county's capital plan for fiscal years 2025 through fiscal year 2034 totals $4.5 billion, and it covers a wide variety of county assets. Those assets include our transportation infrastructure, the roads we maintain, numerous governmental and park facilities, capital support of public safety and technology, our neighborhoods program, stormwater and utilities, and of course, our regional commitment to Metro. There are a variety of sources which fund the CIP. General obligation bonds make up the largest portion of funding at 34%. It includes $189 million, which will be put before the voters at a bond referendum in the fall of this year. Additional sources include funds in the Transportation Capital Fund, a variety of state, federal, and grant revenues to support projects in the 10-year CIP, along with local tax dollars. The majority of the CIP funding is restricted in some way, meaning these funds cannot be used for other purposes. As mentioned on the previous slide, the proposed 2024 bond referendum totals $189 million. This is comprised of $76.2 million for community infrastructure, $25.8 million for parks and recreation, $72.4 million for metro and transportation, and finally $14.2 million for utilities. These funds will be primarily used during fiscal years 2025 and 2026. As you know, protecting our environment and having a resilient community is extremely important. This CIP advances many of those goals with investments in transit, with the conversion of our fleet to electric vehicles, the upgrading of our facilities with solar, and the many environmental areas of stormwater and water quality. These projects help to advance the goals set forth in our community action plan. Ultimately, the board will adopt a capital plan that includes the needs of our schools. The school CIP includes $691 million with $484 million in general obligation bonds throughout their 10-year CIP. Similar to the county, the school 2024 bond request going before the voters will total almost $84 million. The school CIP includes several major new projects, including feasibility studies for 5 facilities, the relocation of the Montessori program, security system upgrades and enhancements, and joint initiatives with the county. The school board adopted their CIP on June 20th. For our timeline, since the manager proposed the CIP in May, we've had a number of work sessions with various county departments and joint county school work session. Tonight is our public hearing, and then the board will hold a markup work session on July 16th, followed by adoption on the 22nd. And that concludes our brief overview of the public hearing.
Thank you very much. All right, I think we're just about ready to get started. The clerk, Mr. Kushner here, is going to call speakers 2 at a time at the beginning, and with all of the 2-minute speakers, and then we'll be followed by the 3-minute speakers. For those of us who might be joining us remotely on Microsoft Teams, please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off until you're called on to speak. As you may probably, hopefully know, if you're calling in by phone, you have to press *6 to unmute yourself. If you're using a computer browser or the app, you just click on the microphone button at the bottom on the toolbar. So for in-person speakers who are here, please be ready to approach the podium when your name's called. And there are buttons on the front right side of the podium, and there's a button to adjust the height so you can go up and down. So if you can get it to fit yourself, and do speak directly into the microphone. I guess I'll say, if you're making remarks, listen to the tone. It'll sound when you've got 30 seconds remaining, and then it'll sound again when your time's elapsed. If you want to give us written statements or documents for the record, and some of you already have, that we do have, you can bring them up to our clerk here, or you can send them to us by email. And with that said, I think we are ready to start with the first two speakers.
Pardon me. Of course, our first speaker is Elizabeth Stevens, followed by James Lesesny.
Good evening.
Madison Center is 76 years old. It has never been
I think the mic is maybe not on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, there you go. Now it's on. That's good. Yep. And you might want to push the button to raise it up a little bit. See the button on the. Yeah, there we go.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Whoop.
All right, now.
Thank you. Nope. Yeah. All right. There
So
you go.
now it on?
It's on. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Madison Center is 76 years old. It has never been renovated. Its share of this year's $52 million Parks and Rec operating budget is $103,893. Much of the year, this huge, shabby building sits largely unused. Madison should be a buzzing hub of activity, a community third space with modern exercise equipment, an above-ground weight room, an indoor basketball court, modern bathrooms, studios for group exercise classes, and a day room for seniors that is not, as it is today, the most depressing space imaginable. Madison is the only community center north of Highway 66, now that Langston is largely an APS site. Here we see the $309 million in CIP projects that Parks and Rec has planned for the coming decade. There are three large dead zones: Arlington National Cemetery, where no one lives, National Airport,
That was a pun, too,
where
I'm
no
sure.
one lives, and this whole top third of the county where tens of thousands of Arlingtonians actually live. This third of the county north of Langston Boulevard desperately lacks a community third space. Recent construction of public communal spaces such as Long Bridge, Leber Run, and Arlington Mill might have been seen primarily as tools to spur economic development. That is not the reason to invest in Madison. Revamping Madison as a usable, functional community and wellness space would be an investment in psychosocial development to address issues of social isolation. To revive Madison as a bustling communal space where people can exercise, take a group class, talk with neighbors, or partake in a pickup basketball game would create a space for just the sort of human activities that tens of thousands of Arlingtonians need. I and my neighbors are asking you to please devote adequate capital funds in this current CIP
Your time's up, but you can finish your sentence. It's
to
fine.
save Madison from disuse and to create a vibrant community space with Parks and Rec programs that serve all demographics,
Thank
a
you.
space that would facilitate wellness and strengthen the community.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Lesesny, followed by Rochelle Baramini-Dove.
Good evening. My name is James Lesane, and I graduated from Yorktown High School in 2023. I'm currently home for the summer, and I'm looking forward to my sophomore year at Tulane University. I grew up in the Rock Spring neighborhood, which, as you may know, is just a stone's throw away from the Madison Center. This fact has made the condition of the center all the more disappointing for both my neighbors and myself. In my experience, the center is sparsely used by people my age because it just doesn't have much to offer. Its weight and cardio rooms have little usefulness or even appeal. The weight room lacks free weights in excess of 50 pounds, a squat rack, and even adequate lighting. The machines in the cardio room are frequently broken and uncomfortably close together. If by some miracle you were to complete a full workout, you'll be unable to both shower and change, as there is no real locker room in the facility. In fewer words, the Madison Center's equipment is outdated and subpar. The center is rarely open, and when it is, you are met by small, dark, and depressing spaces. These unfortunate elements greatly limit the usability of the center, turning what could be a great facility into a local fitness backwater. However, there is still great potential for the Madison Center to serve as a usable and inviting recreational space for members of all ages. As my parents would say, the building has good bones. It just needs a few small changes to make it usable. Improving the facility's weight and exercise rooms, adding a locker room, and creating an actual indoor basketball court would go a long way into making Madison a valuable resource for many, especially the youth. If the county aims to build intelligent and healthy students, it must provide them with a space where they can socialize, exercise, and most importantly, stay out of trouble. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lesane. Our next speaker is Rochelle Baramini-Dove, followed by Beth Ann Wilson.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you so much for taking time to listen to all of us speak today.
Thank you for coming.
I have been in Arlington since I started at Marymount in 1993. And I have a 6-year-old who would love to see programming at Madison that is not just a daycare center. We actually have on our calendar a reminder to go to Arlington County Parks and Recs because the programming gets filled up so quickly, and of course, all the programming is outside of our immediate geographic area. So I think we can all agree that the renovation at Madison Center will have no problem filling up with different kinds of activities for all different age groups. I grew up in Vienna, and in Vienna, you have the community center was the center of all things for all demographics. So it didn't matter where you came from. It was where somebody could all parts of the town could come and meet and play soccer or play basketball at any hour. Teenagers would go there, youngsters would go there, and it was just a really vibrant way to grow up, and I'd love to see that happen at the Madison Center. And while it's so appreciated that you guys are dedicating all this money to redoing the roof and the windows and the HVAC, at the same time, it would be really great if during that closure, the inside could be renovated and used, or that time could be used to make the whole thing a little bit more usable. DPS has done an amazing job with their programming, and I can't imagine they can't find more ways to use it outside of the senior center and the daycare center that currently exists. I think social isolation is a real thing. It doesn't matter in what part of the county you live. And we, in our part of the county, are desperate to have something where we can all go and commune. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Beth Ann Wilson, followed by Kim Zurich-Becknell.
I know Beth Ann is not here, and I'm Kim, so should I just go now, or do you want?
Oh,
If we know for certain she's not here.
yeah, she's not.
She's not.
She's
Okay.
not saying she's here. Go ahead.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hello, board. For 22 years, I've lived across the street from the Madison Center. The Madison Center is kind of like part of our family. We look out our window and we see it every day. We've had our kids go to daycare there. I've volunteered with election poll greeting there. We've held birthday parties there. It's really the anchor of our community, along with our wonderful neighbors, many of whom are sitting behind me here today. Unfortunately, I think that you're hearing a common theme here, which is that this Madison Center is not in great shape. It's in bad shape. You just heard James speak earlier. He's a young man who graduated with my twins. My daughter's about to speak next. We know that there's a mental health crisis with our youth and really with a lot of folks in this community. We also know that studies show that mental health and good exercise, you have much better mental health when you have and the ability for people to exercise more. There's research that shows that. Arlington has been voted as the fittest city in America for 6 years in a row. And I think that we should show that we really believe that by putting money into the Madison Community Center and improving the facility. I don't know what else the plans are for that, but I would like to know if you all are able to answer questions at some point as to what the plans are for the Madison Community Center. You just heard also from James, and you'll hear from my daughter as well. They're spending money to go to other facilities in the community that they have to drive to oftentimes. And this is a priority, I think, for our community. And let's put our money where our mouth is and where our awards are. We're the fittest city in America, so let's put some money into it. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Danielle Becknell, followed by John Kirkpatrick.
So I'm Michaeline. I'm Danny's sister, but we have kind of the same thoughts about this. I'm 19. I live right across the street from the Madison Center. And I went to the park as a kid, and I kind of just would go in the Madison Center and wander through the empty halls and open the rusty lockers. When I was little, it felt like exploring because it was such an unfamiliar space, but now it feels very weird just having that big empty space right in the middle of my neighborhood. And I do still go. I go to the gym 6 days a week, and it's really convenient because it's right across the street. But what I've noticed, because I started going 4 years ago when I was really young, a lot of people go when they're really young because that's what they can afford. It's close, it's in their neighborhood, and it's a good option. But as kind of we got older, we got more interested in fitness, we started realizing that it wasn't a space that we could functionally work out in anymore. Some people just get too strong to use that gym anymore because there's not enough heavy weights. Some people just realize that the space is so inhospitable, especially the bathrooms and the hours, that it's just not worth it anymore. For me, the worst part is the availability, just because it's not open pretty much for 2 days of the week. And even though it's just sitting there, like it's right across the street from me, but I still have to drive all the way to Falls Church to get a workout in that's got like comparable costs. So it's unfortunate. I feel like it could be used better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becknell. Our next speaker is John Kirkpatrick, followed by Charles Day.
Hi, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As I have spoken previously about this topic for funding for the Arlington Neighborhoods program, I will not take too much of your time. But speaking on behalf of the Arlington Neighborhoods Advisory Commission, we work with the Arlington Neighborhoods program to help neighborhoods implement infrastructure projects around the county and civic associations, such as sidewalks and parks and traffic calming initiatives. We are speaking to encourage your support of the county manager's recommendation for $7 million per year for the Arlington Neighborhoods program. We think that is a amount that allows us to continue doing the projects that we have been doing. That's roughly 4 to 5 projects every 6 months. And that will help us get through our project queue and be able to take on new projects. So again, we strongly encourage you to support that. And it will go to critical traffic calming, sidewalk, and park projects over the next 2 years that will really benefit Arlington residents and Arlington neighborhoods. We also like to point out that we believe our support does come from the civic associations, where many civic associations have sent letters in support of the county manager's recommendation for $7 million per year for the in-bond funding for the Arlington Neighborhoods program. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charles Day, followed by Tim Dellinger.
Good evening. I'm pleased to see the funds in the capital improvement plan for improving our bus system. I've spoken before on how, despite our status as one of the richest counties in the country, we can't seem to build a robust bus system. In particular, reliability has been circling the drain, but frequency has been an issue too. I understand that Columbia Pike construction has impacted this, but speaking as a South Arlington resident, it's gotten truly bad in recent months, with headways of sometimes 15 or 20 minutes. These two issues are the biggest reason why daily ridership is a tiny percentage of the county population. Speaking as a daily rider, the county will not meet its climate goals if it cannot convince drivers to get out of cars and onto alternate systems like buses. Adding just a few buses and routes, as the county improvement plan currently aims to do, won't be able to meet those goals. I am, of course, grateful to see that the fleet is also planning to transition to zero-emission buses, but the best bus system is one that is frequent and reliable. We should put as much as possible into hiring new drivers, running more buses, and running them so frequently we don't need to check a schedule. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Our next speaker is Tim Dellinger, followed by Bill Richardson.
Hi there. My name is Tim Dellinger, and I'm on the leadership team of the Arlington Pickleball Club. I really love the idea of the Arlington CIP. Like, it's a 10-year plan so we can address things we all see coming up in the future. And this year, the county manager's survey included a free response section, which I think is great. So thank you for that and for the effort that was required in collating all the responses. The number one theme in the Parks and Rec free response section was court space for tennis, futsal, and pickleball. And you might be asking yourself, what's the story with that? Well, something monumental is about to happen in 2025. For the first time, a target level of service will be established for pickleball. Parks and Rec will finally have a numeric target for how much to expand pickleball court space. We've all seen the national trends. We've seen the numbers from neighboring municipalities, and we've seen the overcrowded pickleball courts in Arlington. The writing's on the wall. There's going to be a major crunch as pickleball and tennis have some difficult conversations about allocating existing court space. So with the growth of court sports, what's abundantly clear is that more courts are needed. Is that reflected in the CIP? By my reading, not yet. So what should be done? There are no easy answers here, which is why these issues rise to the level of executive leadership at the county board. DPR literally has no plan, and they're looking for you for orders to follow. So here are my suggestions. Number one, there's money for land acquisition. That could have a note added that consideration for new court space could be taken when prioritizing options on what land to acquire. Number two, there's athletic court money that kicks in starting in 2027. That could kick in starting in 2025 when the crunch will start. And number three, the big opportunity that I see is Quincy Park, but that's not scheduled until 2031. That could be moved up by, say, 5 years. Or maybe you have ideas for other locations. The important thing is to recognize that there's a major conflict about to happen. We all see it coming, and we can plan for it with more courts, and more courts to promote wellness and vitality in Arlington.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Our next speaker is Bill Richardson, followed by Mary Kudlis.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here representing the over 900 households in the Donaldson Run Civic Association and following up on my comments last month to you, supporting funding of needed renovations to the Madison Community Center. These comments were based on a presentation by Old Glebe Civic Association at our June meeting, which led to unanimous support of the points you've already heard from Old Glebe. On a personal note, I retired about a year ago, as my wife says, in order to spend more time with the county board, which I very much enjoyed. Since retirement, I have joined the 55 Plus program, which features a number of programs most conveniently offered to those in our area at the Madison Center. I've made frequent use of the exercise facilities there, and one of the things that I've noticed is the age and limited nature of the facilities compared to those at Lubber Run, TJ, and others. To show you how old, my late sister-in-law attended elementary school at Madison 75 years ago. As you think about capital priorities, remember, community centers are an important way of ensuring the health, vibrancy, and civic participation of Arlington residents in all areas of the county of so many different ages and interests. Don't neglect this one. It can and should be refurbished and updated to promote those goals and attract many more diverse uses and users in doing so. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Kudlis, followed by Meredith Melnick.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Mary Kudlis. A 34-year resident of Arlington County and a 30-year resident of the Old Glebe community right across the street from the Madison Center. I do want to laud the board, all of you in the Department of Parks and Rec for their vision and your completion of so many extraordinary capital projects in the area of recreation and parks. And how that has really, I think, enhanced the quality of life and put us on the map as a healthy community across the country. The fact of the matter is, though, and I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to visit Madison Center lately. I mean, many go there to vote, and so you may only know it from the voting room, but the facility is unbelievably deteriorated. And it just says something about our resolve for this particular part of our community. I had been I think probably all of us here who are speaking to Madison tonight are all coming from the place that this is our asset. We're confused about why it's in such terrible shape, why it's really not functional for the many kinds of recreational activities that could and should be going on there. And there's quite a lot going on. There's a tremendous amount of interest and participation in what we do have, even with the limitations. So, I hope that our naivete is not misplaced. I hope that the plan is, in fact, to give our community a true community center along the lines of Lubber Run or Longbridge. We're under the impression that's what you want us to have. And that is what we're asking, that you take the opportunity of the CIP to provide the funding that is needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cudlis. Our next speaker is Meredith Melnick, followed by Richard Samp.
She's okay.
Good. Good evening. My name is Meredith Melnick, and I'm here to support the need for the county to allocate funds to renovate the Madison Center. I live in Country Club Manors, an APS employee, and have been a fitness instructor for Arlington County Parks and Rec for over 20 years. The past 15 years, I've consistently taught at least 2 of my classes at the Madison Center. If I had not just broken my knee, I would be teaching a class there right now. Over the years of teaching fitness classes in Arlington, I have seen and worked in different fitness rooms. The one that you have here is absolutely beautiful. However, the Madison Center is the only one that remains in the vintage Arlington style. I teach yoga classes and cardio body sculpting classes at the Madison Center on Tuesday and Wednesday nights in the old Madison lunchroom. In addition to needing to provide our own weights and yoga props, the floor is not a fitness floor, which means those who have knee sensitivities have more issues when doing moves that have us on our knees. Also, if we need to relocate our class, such as on election day, the only option is for a small former classroom. My teenage son has a yearly fitness room membership, just like James does. When he was a senior in high school, he and his friends all joined together the fitness program through Arlington County. Because of the higher quality of equipment and the modern amenities of the other locations offered, they will choose to drive to another center such as Langston or Lubber Run instead of walking to the Madison Center. Arlington is known as the fittest county in the nation. Arlington needs to invest in keeping this gem of a location up to date and current with residents' expectations of fitness needs. If the county does not invest money now into this location, when will it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope the knee gets better.
All right, our next speaker is Richard Samp, and then followed by our 3-minute speakers, beginning with Ms. Cynthia Lewin.
Good evening. My name is Richard Samp. I've lived for the last 40 years 1 block away from the Madison Center, and I'm here to support increased funding for it. I won't repeat everything else others have said. I can tell you that, like Mr. Richardson, I have retired within the last year, and I made an effort to try to go to the fitness room at Madison, and I just find it really not up to par, so that to the extent that I have gone elsewhere, that I've gone at all, it's been elsewhere. Unfortunately, the distance has made it that I'm not in as good a shape as I'd like to be. So for my personal health benefits, I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samp. If you give me just a moment.
Hi, I'm Cindy Lewin. I'm chair of the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission, our beloved C2E2. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. We provided a comment letter on the CIP on June 25th. You're all nodding, you saw. I'll just hit the highlights. Overall, we really commend the board for all and the budget team for all of the work in advancing climate priorities, energy efficiency, rooftop solar, transportation, stormwater, and bike and pedestrian infrastructure. On a personal note, I just returned from Denmark and Norway, where they have incredible bike and pedestrian infrastructure. And I have to say, as a curmudgeonly older woman whose bike was stolen 10 years ago and I haven't replaced it, I walked everywhere. There's no Uber, there's no Lyft. Keep at it. You will convert even people like me. But anyway, back to the CIP. What we would really like to see is a connection. Arlington has set these incredible goals in 2019, carbon neutrality by 2050, and also, 100% of Arlington's electricity to be from renewable sources by 2035, which is really right around the corner. So are we getting there? How are we tracking this? It's hard for us to tell. CIP is a huge opportunity to make investments toward that. The CIP, in terms of investment in Arlington's own facilities, only talks through FY26. We would love to see an inventory of all of Arlington's buildings, possibly the Madison Community Center, showing how when they will be renovated, what's kind of energy, what's the plan. You may have a plan like that. We haven't seen it. We'd love it to be made public for accountability and education. On the buses, we've heard about the buses tonight too, and we will hear more. I won't belabor it, but we don't think we need a replacement ratio of more than 1-to-1. And if we didn't do that, we would free up a huge amount of CIP money. On the Climate Action Fund, C2E2 is really excited to see that fund augmented in this year's budget process. That was absolutely great. And we certainly support the Lever Run Resiliency Hub, but we're concerned about the use of the Climate Action Fund for resiliency. We think that fund should be reserved for things to directly attack climate change, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, move to full electricity. We still have the chance to fight, and that's what we need to be doing with those funds. Otherwise, so we need some screening criteria. Otherwise, it's just like moving money from one pocket to another if you can't restrict it. In addition, speaking of the Resiliency Hub, we'd love to see backup battery power instead of looking at gas generators there. And if you switch to battery electric buses, you've got these giant roving storage facilities that can really help with resiliency, so we can look forward to thinking about that. I will stop there. You have our letter, which supports what you're doing on stormwater. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the letter, too.
Our next speaker is Audrey Clement, followed by Monique O'Grady.
I'm Audrey Clement, independent candidate for Arlington County Board. I have concerns about the proposed CIP. Principal among them, the use of doublespeak to describe priorities and projects. Specifically, I'm concerned about the use of the buzzword resiliency throughout. Nowhere is the meaning of this term defined, yet it is used 13 times in the manager's message and 19 times in the PowerPoint presentation. For example, the manager says, quote, "My proposed CIP is intended to do the same for the next few years. Enable the county to be responsive to change through investments in resiliency and maintain financial flexibility," end of quote. There are 9 projects in the CIP that use the term resiliency. Over 10 years, these projects will expend approximately $40 million in taxpayer money. Yet there are only 2 projects on the list whose purpose I can guess based on familiarity with the issue, namely the Stream Resiliency Program and Gulf Branch Stream Resiliency. These 2 projects will employ a widely discredited technology called stream restoration to flatten stream beds and clear-cut stream banks to promote erosion control, and have engendered a lot of public opposition due to their adverse environmental impacts. Here it is evident that the real purpose of the term resiliency is to obfuscate the actual purpose of the project and thereby keep the opposition at bay. According to William Lutz, the co-author of the SEC's Plain English Handbook and author of Doublespeak and 16 other books, this is precisely what the Orwellian concept of doublespeak is intended to do. In a recent podcast, he said, quote, "In a democracy, we decide what policies and candidates to back by listening to the public discourse. If the discussion is carried out in doublespeak, organizations deliberately mislead the people so they don't really know what's going on. And we wind up making decisions of social importance on the wrong basis," end of quote. Another concern I have with the CIP is its assumption that as long as certain benchmark financial ratios are met, the expenditures in it are prudent. The CIP includes an outlay of $180 million for the new Career Center High School, with an operating capacity of 1,600 students, which is double the price of a new high school elsewhere in Virginia, including the new George Mason High School in Falls Church City, priced at $72.9 million for about 1,500 students. If the sky is the limit for new schools for which we have comparable data in the state website, how prudent are other projections in the CIP? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clement. Our next speaker is Monique O'Grady, followed by Kevin Yim.
Good evening, County Board members and Mr. Schwartz. I'm 32-year resident Monique O'Grady, and I'm here to speak in support of the APS Capital Improvement Plan, which will be part of your CIP vote. As a former school board chair and bond co-chair, I believe the CIP takes a targeted, responsible, and managed approach. The 10-year CIP is well below APS's 10% debt capacity, leaving room for the county to pursue additional projects. It also supports our schools in 3 ways. It advances renovation plans for 5 schools with infrastructure needs at locations high on the renovation list. It addresses other projects that include safety, fields, and ongoing repair needs at other schools. And it completes the Career Center site by maximizing green space for the students who come from across the county for full-time high school and the hundreds who attend from neighboring high schools to take advantage of cutting-edge, hands-on educational opportunities, more than the 1,600 just mentioned. Additionally, the plan includes removing the outdated Patrick Henry building, which is among the most in need buildings on the facilities conditions assessment list, and moves those students into the soon-to-be empty and renovated Legacy Career Center. Investing just 8% of the total CIP to move Montessori Public School of Arlington into the Legacy Career Center is part of this plan is wise for several reasons. Number one, I see you're paying attention here. If we do not rebuild these seats, all of South Arlington will have a permanent seat deficit. Tearing down the current MPSA building and not replacing those seats will permanently return South Arlington to an area that has too few seats for the students who live there now and will live there in the future, resulting in possible massive boundary adjustments from Jamestown to Abingdon, more busing costs, more trailers, crowded classrooms, and even the possible closing of a neighborhood school in North or South Arlington. Number 2, keep it where most students live. 71% of those students who attend the school live in South Arlington. Keeping that school in South Arlington is key to serving the students who attend the school. Data across all Arlington elementary option schools tracks similarly. Roughly 70% of students who attend elementary option schools in South Arlington live in South Arlington, and approximately 70% of students who attend elementary option schools in North Arlington live in North Arlington. Number 3, keep it where at-risk families can access it. MPSA hosts the largest pre-K program in Arlington Public Schools with more than 100 preschoolers. 2/3 of those seats are reserved for students who qualify for free state pre-K. And the tuition is set on a sliding scale to make it affordable for those who need it. Moving this program away from South Arlington will make it hard for families it was meant to serve to access it. Number 4, don't take away successful programs from needy students. Data show MPSA is on track for helping ease opportunity gaps, which is needed in the school's population. The K through 5 fifth grade students at the school have a 37% free and reduced lunch rate. Arlington Heights and Penrose Civic Association support this plan, and you should too.
Thank you, Ms. O'Grady.
Thank you, Ms. O'Grady. Our next speaker is Kevin Yim, followed by Dean Amell.
Good evening, Chair Garvey.
Good evening.
Fellow board members, staff. My name is Kevin Yam. I'm a 20-year Arlington resident and vice chair of the Economic Development Commission. I'm here to provide comments on behalf of the EDC regarding the capital improvement plan. My comments will largely echo the letter we sent you just yesterday, which has been unanimously approved by our commission. Historically, we at the EDC have not weighed in on the CIP process, recognizing that the other departments and commissions have more direct oversight over these expenditures. However, due to our commission's ongoing efforts to address the commercial office vacancy crisis, we find it necessary to highlight the connection between our work and this 10-year capital plan. The EDC formed a commercial vacancy working group last spring to address the office vacancy crisis that has unfolded post-pandemic, and we presented these findings and recommendations to you last fall. Since then, the working group has continued to meet regularly to monitor the market and staff's ongoing efforts to combat this crisis, primarily through CMRI. The EDC would like to emphasize 2 points for the county board to keep in mind as it prepares to take action on the CIP. First, the worst of the crisis is still ahead of us. Since we last updated you, the office vacancy in the county has increased from 21.5% in the third quarter of last year to a historic high of 23.6% at the end of June. Very few office sales have occurred in the DC region in the past year, but those that have traded at levels that have revealed dramatic price reductions, as much as a 78% reduction from prior sale. Let that one sink in. Furthermore, the ballast previously provided by the resilient multifamily rental market has been eroded by the rising interest rate environment. And while demand remains stable, values for multifamily assets have fallen meaningfully since 2022, and new construction has ground to a halt. Considering the headwinds facing the county's commercial corridors, the EDC advises the county board to exercise caution with respect to the revenue growth assumptions underlying the CIP. We believe it prudent for the board to consider a scenario where the assumed revenue growth in the CIP of 2.5% in fiscal years 26-27 and 3% annual growth thereafter is not achieved. Secondly, the EDC would like to highlight, that was quick, that development is an important source of funding. There's projected to be $173 million in CIP funding over the next 10 years through developer contributions. The staff's ongoing work in CMRI and the EDC's working group efforts are working to preserve and grow this important source of funding. And in this challenging environment, where there's significant risk of this source shrinking, it is more important than ever that the county support economic growth and development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yam. Our next speaker is Dean Amell, followed by Joan McIntyre.
Good evening, Chair Garvey and board members. My name is Dean Amell, and I'm chair of the Sierra Club's Potomac River Group. We're encouraged by the increased funding for environmental initiatives in this CIP as compared to those from previous years. However, there are 2 aspects of the draft that, in our judgment, need improvement. Our primary concern is with the Lubber Run Resiliency Hub, which will provide community services before, during, and after an emergency. We support emergency preparedness, but object to the allocation of more than 2/3 of the entire Climate Action Fund to this project. To its credit, the county board revised the county manager's draft budget this year to substantially increase funding for climate action. With this proposed CIP, the county manager has effectively taken all that increase in funding and committed it to this one resiliency hub. The Climate Action Fund should be used to advance the county's carbon neutral goals, making the fund available for a wide range of energy-related and emergency preparedness-related projects that seriously diminishes the value of the fund. Our concerns are heightened by the fact that the CIP proposes to use the Climate Action Fund to bring fossil fuel backup generation to Lubber Run Community Center, a planned net zero energy facility. Lubber Run will already have substantial solar and battery backup capacity, with the added ability for the battery system to be recharged by electric buses if needed. So it's unclear that any further fossil fuel backup is needed. But if such backup is installed, it would be outrageous to use the Climate Action Fund to support methane use that runs directly counter to the purposes of the Climate Action Fund. Our second concern is with the transition of the ART fleet from methane gas to battery electric buses. We have repeatedly noted that electric buses can replace methane buses on a one-to-one basis in Arlington, which is ideally suited for electric bus service. Over time, staff has reduced the estimated replacement ratio from 2-to-1 to 1.3-to-1, but has yet to explain adequately why any additional buses are needed. As outlined in our letter to you, ART can use many strategies to avoid expanding its bus fleet, just as WMATA, DASH, and other bus systems are doing. It appears that spending on the unnecessary extra buses and the real estate and facility costs to support them will not happen in the next 2 years. So these can be corrected in the next iteration of the CIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamel.
Thank you, Mr. Hamel. Our next speaker is Joan McIntyre, followed by Chris Slatt.
Good evening, I'm Joan McIntyre, and tonight I'm speaking on behalf of Eco Action Arlington. Eco Action Arlington appreciates the considerable investments included in the FY 2025-2034 Capital Improvement Plan. These investments will advance energy efficiency, on-site solar, EV charging infrastructure, natural resources, energy security, stormwater management, and will advance the county's goal for carbon neutrality and build a more sustainable and resilient community. The biannual update of the CIP is a key opportunity for the county to demonstrate leadership in phasing out fossil fuels and decarbonizing its operations, as well as a whole-of-government approach to addressing the climate crisis. While the CIP indicates progress, it offers little details on how the proposed investments will phase out fossil fuels, reduce energy consumptions, and meet the county's goal for carbon neutrality. Eco Action Arlington is most concerned about the proposed plans to use $2.5 million from the Climate Action Fund for the Lubber Run Resiliency Fund, primarily and ironically for a fossil gas backup generator. We strongly support the creation of a network of resiliency hubs, as well as microgrids to serve community needs during power outages and other emergencies. The Climate Action Fund was established in FY23 to fund implementation of the Community Energy Plan, which has its ultimate goal to achieve carbon neutrality across Arlington for 2050. Given that 96% of the county greenhouse gas emissions come from the private sector, we believe that the Climate Action Fund should be reserved for projects that advance decarbonization across the Arlington community. Eco Action Arlington, along with Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions and the Sierra Club Potomac River Group, recently recommended that much of this fund be used for creating essentially a one-stop shop to assist homeowners, businesses, and building owners to improve energy efficiency and phase out fossil fuels. The best way to ensure resiliency in Arlington is to address the underlying causes of the climate crisis. We also encourage the county board to anticipate that the transition of ART buses to battery electric buses at a 1-to-1 replacement ratio and begin planning how excess capital cost built into the CIP can be used to advance broader transportation and other county goals. We believe, based on the understanding of rapidly advances in BEB technology and a wide range of opportunities for efficient fleet management being used in other jurisdictions, that Arlington should easily make the transition at a 1-to-1 ratio. Thank you for the opportunity to comment and your commitment to addressing the climate crisis.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre.
Our next speaker is Chris Slatt, followed by Tracy Gabriel.
Good evening. My name is Chris Slatt, and I am speaking this evening on behalf of the 600 members of Sustainable Mobility for Arlington County, a nonprofit advocacy organization focused on making sure Arlington supports walking, biking, and transit. My first request this evening is that when we all convene to do this again in about 22 months, that each program in the transportation section of the CIP include a comprehensive list of projects that are envisioned within that program. The current CIP document links to some projects, but largely only the ones that are already in design or construction. The projects that deserve the most scrutiny, in my opinion, are the new projects in the far out years, and these are rarely, if ever, listed. As an example, the Crystal City, Pentagon City, and Potomac Yard Streets program in the draft CIP links to 6 projects. In reality, there are 5 more projects included in this program for a total of 11. These additional projects were only confirmed as a result of questions from the Transportation Commission. Listing all projects and any placeholder funding is the only way to actually get useful and actionable feedback from the public and your commissions on the CIP. Otherwise, all you're really asking for feedback on is a relative magnitude of investment across various programs. The second request is that you recognize and start working now on the large problem that is just beneath the surface of the CIP. There are 13 transportation studies envisioned within this CIP time horizon, every single one of them for important areas that need need work. The MTP update, the Custis Trail renovation study, crossing Shirlington Road at 4 Mile Run, 2 different Langston Boulevard studies, the Carlin Springs Road study, the Fairfax Drive 10th Street corridor study, and more. These studies will all result in projects, which will need funding to be built. And my understanding is only the 2 Langston Boulevard studies have any placeholder funds for implementation, and this transportation CIP is full. There isn't room within it to rebuild Fairfax Drive or Carlin Springs Road or build a trail to connect Kenmore Middle School to the Arlington Boulevard Trail. We need to start working now on a combination of solutions. Getting back our NVTA local money that was redirected to Metro would be a great first step. Revising the criteria for various VDOT grant programs like Smart Scale that privilege road widenings over sustainable options would be super helpful. We also might need to start using larger scale tactical interventions instead of trying to solve every problem with concrete. Third, I strongly oppose the use of $25 million in local transportation capital fund dollars for the ART battery electric bus fleet transition. If the county wants to chase grants and federal funding for electric buses, then fine, Godspeed. But those $25 million in local funds could be put to any number of better uses and more important things than running the same insufficient bus service except on a battery. Finally, I would like to speak in support of the courthouse multimodal project, which was put on hold when the the Crystal City second entrance went over budget. I would like to speak in support of protected bike lanes on 15th Street in Pentagon City between Hayes and Elm, as called for in the Pentagon City sector plan. And I would like to speak up for a complete streets project on Fairfax Drive from Glebe to Clarendon Circle. I will send you more details in a letter. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Slatt.
Thank you, Mr. Slatt. Our next speaker is Tracy Gabriel. Mr. Jones, are you here on behalf of the bid?
I am. Thank you.
Of course.
Good evening, Chair Garvey and members of the County Board. I'm Matt Jones, the Mobility Manager of the National Atlantic Business Improvement District. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the Capital Improvement Plan. We applaud the county's focus on big move mobility investments like the CC to DCA Intermodal Connector, delivering a new Crystal City East Metro Station, expanding our VRE station, and furthering our goals to support Vision Zero and complete street projects. We also commend the county's strategic investments to deliver more premier parks and open space. The bid supports CC to DCA, a critical intermodal connection delivering next-generation mobility, and we recommend making this big move project an independent CIP line item separate from the other Crystal City, Pentagon City, Potomac Yard Street mobility projects. Creating a standalone item for CC to DCA communicates the project's importance as the top CIP infrastructure investment priority this funding cycle. Switching to people-powered mobility, the bid encourages the county to prioritize funding specifically for improvements along 15th Street and green ribbon connections envisioned in the Pentagon City sector plan. Bike facility improvements along Potomac Avenue will also support a fully connected and safe bicycle network in National Landing. We are excited to see funding for the Long Bridge Drive multimodal connection and encourage the county to ensure this regionally important facility is planned and funded through FY 2034. Regarding critical public facilities here at National Landing, the bid supports future funding of a Crystal City library and advocates for such a facility to be an important cultural amenity for our growing neighborhood. Investing in National Landing's parks and open space resources is critical to building a livable downtown community. The bid looks forward to seeing progress on key open space projects like the Bell Street Center Park. Strategic open space investments will anchor the realization of the green ribbon concept envisioned to unify the area. In conclusion, we encourage the county board to approve this CIP and continue the commitment to transform and unify the Crystal City, Pentagon City, and Potomac Yard communities that comprise National Landing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Our next and final speaker is Collier Cook.
Good evening, Chair Garvey and members of the County Board. There are a lot of great things to like about the draft CIP in front of you. These include a number of great transportation projects, including new and expanded paved trails, added protected bike lanes, various street enhancements, and capital improvements to transit that will help reduce travel times and make the system more pleasant to use. But to follow on to Mr. Slatt's testimony, a lot of the projects are simply studies. There's not identified planning or construction, either dollars or timeframes established. We need a better procedure for putting together CIP, future CIPs for transportation. So with that, I urge you in future CIPs to ask for better and more thorough documentation so that we as a community can better judge these projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. That's our final speaker.
That is our final speaker.
All right, thank you. So this concludes our public hearing on the proposed 2025-2034 capital improvement program. And so I'd like to just quickly offer the following motion. I would like to move that to close the public hearing on the proposed FY 2025 to 2034 capital improvement program and to carry over action to the July 2024 County Board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all. Motion passes 5-0 for our public hearing now on the CIP is closed, which does not mean that you can't continue to talk to us in a whole variety of ways. We're just not doing a public hearing again. In terms of next steps, we're going to hold our final CIP work session, and we'll have wrap-up discussion, and that will be next Tuesday, July 16. And there, I think you will hear us discuss a number of issues. I'm sure the Madison Center will come up. And then we will vote on the CIP adoption at our upcoming July County Board meeting. And you can either come and attend here, or you can watch online if you would like. In the meantime, we really do appreciate everybody who took the time to come, both in person and virtually, and who have been sharing their thoughts all the way along. And as a reminder, of course, as I said, we continue to welcome your written comments and statements, and you can send us an email, use our Open Door Monday, or a variety of ways to get in touch with us. Email I've got here, I can just let people know, countyboard@arlingtonva.us. It's pretty simple. And so that's it for tonight. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We are adjourned.